wonder, how can I be free from these issues that have destroyed my life? Well, my friend, I have the answer. Bible Way Hibner Memorial Church of God in Christ presents Chain Breakers, this and every Sunday at 9 a.m. here on WHYL.
From the L.B. Smith Ford Lincoln Studios, Oldies 102.9 is WHYL Carlisle.
Welcome to the Real Estate Radio Guys, your weekly source for all things real estate. We're your hosts, real estate broker John Rainville and your mortgage expert Kingsley Harmer discuss everything from mortgage rates to home staging for foreclosures and everything in between that affect the daily real estate market. Real people, real questions, real answers. Today's show is brought to you by www.pagoloan.com, your source for new mortgage loans. NMLS number 1018. EnviroQuest, trusted for home inspections and radon mitigation in Central PA for over 25 years. And brokersrealty.com, the easiest way to search for real estate in your hometown. Now, on to the show.
Good morning. Bright and sunny day here in Pennsylvania. It's John Rainville, brokersrealty.com, and one of the real estate radio guys. This morning we've got an exciting show, but as usual, my co-host is
Kingsley Harmer, residential home funding, and it's definitely a gorgeous day out today. I'm going to give a quick shout out to my sister-in-law, Susan Cannon, and her future husband, Keith Updegraff, who are getting married today.
And where are they getting married at?
They're getting married at a little place over in the Edders area. It's like an old bed and breakfast, and the name escapes me, but it's an old house on 3 acres, gorgeous scenery.
Like in Lewisberry?
Yeah, but it's right by the beer distributor. I mean, how much more convenient can you get?
Well, if you run out of supplies, you're close.
Exactly. Yeah, it's where the church is when you go up that road, and it's just past the church on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the property.
Beautiful place.
Yeah,
Beautiful
it is.
place.
Gorgeous place. Well, today's show, we're going to be talking to Craig Diehl. Craig's an attorney and also a CPA. So he's going to be talking with us about title issues, what an attorney can do for you at closing.
I think he's a landlord, too.
Oh, he's a landlord here and there. He's a very well-known tennis player, too. I have, yeah. I found that out through the grapevine. We're also then going to be talking with John Stas, our favorite home inspector, later in the show. And John's going to be talking about legal issues you can run into on a home inspection. So that rate went up this week.
Yeah, and it was already priced in.
And so the rates went down.
They went down because the European central banks went and did something that they, months ahead of schedule, they actually came up and, announced their intention on leaving things kind of pat for the next year. And when that came up, that's actually what caused the rates to go down a little bit, the market to go down. But the actual Fed hike was already built right into it.
So it was already priced in, like we spoke about last week.
Right. And then the other part of it is, they've got these bullet points that say, okay, this is where we're in 2018, this is where we're expected to go in 2020, and for the most part, it's relatively flat. So when they look at that and they think, okay, well, there isn't appearing to be much movement even coming into the future, that kind of gives the market, that sigh of relief, and we may be pushing, at least the foreseeable future, kind of a ceiling. We'll call it a soft ceiling, but I don't. They're basically saying there's not going to be any huge spikes in rates anytime soon.
Well, that's interesting. And in the real estate market, just to give folks a quick overview, we're still seeing tight inventory. We're still looking for more inventory every day. We are seeing, definite multiple offers. We're seeing a lot of different things out there. Still chasing, trying to get more listings, and the multiple offers are coming in left and right. We had one property on the market only, I think, 6 hours yesterday, had 3 showings and 2 offers come in.
In 6 hours?
In really about 8 hours till the offers all came in. That's just crazy. It's ludicrous.
Well, I think that's just, great marketing and
Yeah, I'd like to take that, but I think it was timing and pricing makes a big difference. So good morning, Craig. How are you doing this morning?
Morning, John. How are you?
Good. So can you introduce yourself to our listeners? Tell us a little bit about how much tennis you play and what else you do.
Well, good morning. My name is Craig Diehl. I'm an attorney and a CPA, offices in Camp Hill in Spring Grove, which is in York County. I've been doing this for about 30 years, and also I'm an owner of Prominent Settlement Services, which is a fairly new entity which handles a substantial amount of title insurance and closings for residential and commercial transactions. So graduated from Bloomsburg University and the Dickinson School of Law. Had some experience at Price Waterhouse to get my CPA license, and then have been practicing as an attorney and a CPA ever since with my own practice. So it's a beautiful morning, John.
It is a beautiful morning out there. I think everybody here in our region is just thrilled with sunshine.
For sure.
May was a tough month, and with all the rain we had, so that's all good. So, Craig, can you give our listeners a little bit of idea of how an attorney may get involved in the real estate transaction, and why they need to reach out to somebody with your areas of expertise, especially, let's say, for example, a lot of people don't know that there are different ways to take title. Can you explain to our listeners what it is and what some options might be?
Sure, John. Basically, an attorney gets involved very similar to a title company here in Pennsylvania. All states are different in that regard. Some states require an attorney. Pennsylvania does not. So attorneys that practice in real estate law compete with title agents for business in regards to handling closings, title insurance, and various matters like that. Certainly title companies cannot do any litigation or are supposed to not prepare documents, which are legal documents on behalf of a client. But in regards to taking title, it's very interesting if you're not married on how to take title to a property. If you are purchasing a property with someone that is not your spouse, there's basically two ways to take title to the property. The first is what is called in legal terms tenants in common, and the second, again in legal terms, is joint tenants with right of survivorship. So I'll start with the former, tenants in common. This would be a situation where if it's John, you and I buying a property together, we're certainly not married, but two adult individuals, and we decide to take title as property on the property as tenants in common. In the event one of us would pass away unexpectedly, the survivor does not own outright the property. The 50% equity in that property would go under my will or your will, being the person who had passed away. So certainly now...
Whoa. I'm the one that passed away?
Well, either one, John, either one.
All right, that's better. At least it's equal opportunity.
There you go. So certainly, again, the survivor would not be the sole owner of that property, so now you could be owning the property with someone maybe you don't really know, and that could be problematic. Or it could be numerous heirs that, say, if I passed away first, my will left my assets to maybe 10 different people. So the next thing you know, you have 10 co-owners with you on this property. So again, there are certain reasons why you would want to do that, but that is one of the pitfalls of owning the property as tenants in common. Going with the second option, joint tenants with right of survivorship. Again, if you or I pass away, the survivor would own the property outright, no matter what our will says. So if our will leaves the property to our spouse or to our children, but you and I own that property, joint tenants with right of survivorship, the survivor of the two of us would own that property 100%. So, interesting, I had a situation this week where two individuals purchased the property as tenants in common before they got married. They subsequently, about 5 years later, got married, but never changed their deed. And then when we got a title search back, they were looking to sell their property. There were several judgments against each of them individually. And unbeknownst to them, because they thought they were married, they believed they did not have to pay these judgments when they sold the property. But unfortunately, because they had the property held in title as tenants in common and never changed the deed after they got married, all these judgments were applicable to them and they had to pay them off. So a great situation on why, if you get married, you probably want to immediately get that deed switched over to husband and wife, or what is called in legal terms, tenancy by the entireties.
Interesting. Good morning, Craig. Quick question.
Morning, Kingsley.
When you get into that whole issue with tenants in common versus joint tenants, I've heard a lot of people talking about when you do get married, you own a home in a certain way of title, that it's a safe way, that if you were in a car accident and you had the cars in separate names. Does that, I mean, you hear that going around all the time. Does that play an effect as far as being able to get sued if you were in a car accident individually?
If the property is held as husband and wife and one of the spouses is in a car accident of which they were at fault, that house is protected. So the creditor or the person injured would not be able to force the liquidation of the husband and wife's home in that particular situation, because the judgment would only have been against one of them.
And it doesn't matter whether the car's in both their names or not.
If the car is in both names, then that would open up potentially all their joint assets. So that's why a lot of people or attorneys, when they meet with people for planning purposes, will say to individuals that they may only want to take title in one of their names, especially if they're married and have some substantial assets that are held in husband and wife, or as husband and wife.
Interesting. Craig, I mean, one of our listeners wants to know, because we're using vernacular, what is title?
Well, title insurance is, John, basically a process that someone is searching the public records. They're making then, after the results of that search of the public records comes back, and reviewing that to determine the insurability of the property. And finally, then someone is issuing a title insurance policy to ensure that person's ownership rights. So it's kind of a three-part process that kind of covers what title insurance is all about.
So if I buy a house, and throughout the normal process, obviously, we're coming to your office and I'm getting a title search done, and there doesn't seem to be anything on there except for, possibly a mortgage and maybe a second mortgage or something along those lines. So after I purchase property, in essence, by doing a title search and having insurance put on it, I'm, in essence, ensuring that I'm getting a clean title, correct, without any liens against me or the property?
That is correct. There's kind of a saying out there that with an owner's title insurance policy that you're purchasing when you buy a new home, you're kind of, quote, buying peace of mind. So that's kind of the saying that's out there in the public realm that is utilized as to why to get title insurance.
Craig, can you explain to our listeners what an owner's policy is compared to, basic title insurance, what the difference is?
Sure. When purchasing a property, John, basic an owner's policy, in very simple terms, is what I would call a background check on your home. So it's no different than maybe buying a car. If it's a used car, you may want to find out if that car has ever been in a flood, if it's ever been in an accident, if it's been repaired extensively. So very similar on real estate, it's title insurance or an owner's policy is providing you with that background check on this piece of property you're contemplating purchasing.
Sounds like a house fax.
Yeah, house fax, like a car fax. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Craig, now the owner's policy, that costs extra, correct?
The owner's policy is based on the purchase price of the property. Most transactions, unless we're very lucky, would involve a mortgage. And most of your lenders today that work in the primary mortgage market, residential mortgage market, will require what is called a lender's policy or a loan policy. And that is ensuring to the lender the amount of the mortgage that's being provided to the new homeowner.
So if the lender is purchasing insurance, which is for the most part required if there's a mortgage, why does the owner do it? What's the difference between if there's a lender's policy, why would the owner still need to do that or want to do that?
Well, that's a very good question. There is a distinction between the two. The lender or loan policy is required by the lender to ensure that their security interest in the property is being protected. What is their security interest? Their security interest in a normal residential transaction would be their mortgage. So they are insuring or requesting insurance from the new homeowner to make sure that their security interest is insured, that if there's problems down the road, the bank has insurance that their loan amount that's provided to the new homeowner is going to get paid by insurance if there be some title defect down the road. The owner's policy, normally in a residential transaction in today's world, you're no longer getting 100% coverage or a 100% mortgage. So the owner's policy is to the owners specifically. It will cover the entire purchase price of the transaction, which is normally higher than the loan amount. And it's not two separate policies to pay for. You pay for the highest of the two amounts. So if your purchase price of your home is $200,000 and your mortgage is $100, you're paying for owner's policy on the $200,000, which would include the $150,000 that would be going towards the lender or loan policy.
So it's really one policy, more or less. It's just kind of an addendum to that one policy to cover the whole purchase price.
Well, two separate policies, but one basic charge.
Okay.
Craig,
Get of the two.
another question one of our listeners is asking us is, they said that they closed property, and not only did they get charged for title insurance, they saw that there was a charge there for something called endorsements.
Okay. And I want to, before I jump over to endorsements, it's kind of interesting to note, and this is just kind of for our next cocktail party. Abraham Lincoln, if you're a history buff, his family actually lost their property twice because of title defects. And that's about when title insurance started to come into play in the United States. So very interesting. If you know anything about Abraham Lincoln, his parents lost property twice when he was a young child because of title defects. So that's why title insurance is very, very important.
So just so our listeners kind of understand the importance of title insurance itself, you go to buy a house. I just bought a house yesterday. And in this particular situation, it was a house flip. So somebody came in and bought a condemned house and did a lot of work, renovated it. It's a beautiful house now. It's got upgrades out the wazoo. I purchase it, move in. I'm a happy clam. And I get a knock on my door 2 months later saying, hey, I never got paid for putting the floors in. How does that protect me as a homeowner at this point?
Well, title insurance would encompass, in that particular situation, what would be called a mechanic's lien. So it's potentially a scenario where unpaid material men or subcontractors who have worked on the property can subsequently, within a period of time, file what's called a lien against the property. It's called a mechanic's lien, and that lien would have priority over the mortgage that was provided. Title insurance would cover you in that situation and ensure that the first mortgage remains in first position on that property.
Craig, I have a question. I mean, easements. I just had a commercial property where, we had a copy of the deed, and we went out and we measured it because it was in town. You could pretty much see where everything was, and we could find one of the river ends. And then we find it didn't quite make sense because it looked like there should be like 35, 37 parking spaces for this particular building when we measured out the lot. However, we come to find then that there was an easement, obviously, that doesn't show on the deed, and that a property next door has exclusive right to use 23 of their 35 parking spaces. Where does that come up? I mean, because it's a deed. The previous owner put it on, obviously, on the property. How do your guys find things like that?
Well, and again, it's a very good example of a situation where title insurance and owner's title insurance would give you protection against that potential defect. You have situations, John, where you can have undisclosed but recorded easements. In that particular situation, which is, I think, similar to what you were suggesting in your example, of whether the easement was disclosed at the courthouse or recorded at the courthouse or it was not. And again, I think it's very important for your listeners to understand that on title insurance, a title insurance policy is only reflecting what can be found in the public courthouse normally it's called the Recorder of Deeds office. So an abstractor only has access to information within that office. But as we all know, people make private agreements, and sometimes these agreements do not get recorded at the courthouse. And in your situation like that, title insurance could provide protection to that person if, in fact, they felt they were getting 35 or 37 parking spaces, and there was this side agreement where they only are actually getting a much less amount of parking spaces.
But that should have come up when, let's say that they just bought it like 5 or 6 years ago. That should have come up when they did the title bring down, when the title was checked, correct?
Absolutely, as long as it was a recorded agreement.
So now if it's not recorded, basically the other party that has this private agreement is, for lack of a better word, is SOL. Am I correct?
Pretty much.
Okay.
That is correct. It's not enforceable.
Okay. So in that particular case, somebody's coming after you for those 20 spaces and they can't do anything because it wasn't recorded.
Yeah.
And now you've got the insurance helping you, backing you up.
So now, Craig, I'm going to take that one step further, and we're going to talk a little bit about encroachments. So now in that same situation, the property next door that has I'm getting free legal advice here, folks. While that property next door has exclusive right to those 23 extra parking spaces, they also have on this property, and what I view as an encroachment, because they have 2 huge commercial parking lot lights on my client's property. Would that be a separate issue, or would that be something that would be handled when they did the easement?
Well, again, it would depend, John, on how it was recorded. Certainly an encroachment is another item that is specifically covered with title insurance. Also, you asked the question, and I kind of alluded it, and not on purpose, but it may also be covered under a title endorsement. And certain types of endorsements cover or specifically insure against or protect against encroachments.
So even though maybe the easement was disclosed, the encroachment may not be permitted if it's not covered in that easement. Am I correct?
That would be accurate. But the encroachment could be a separate title insurance problem that could be covered by the entitled insurance. Again, if the encroachment is something that was recorded of record, then it's clearly covered by title insurance and should have been found by the abstractor when they were doing their title search.
Now let's go one step beyond that, where, let's say, for example, one party says it was recorded, one doesn't, and the other party is suing you. Does the title insurance itself cover you in the event of actual court costs or attorney costs or anything to that effect?
Yes, what normally happens is a claim is made to the title insurance company. The title insurance company does their own review of that particular claim, and the title insurance company then will normally, if in fact it is something that's covered by title insurance, they will pay the damaged party the amount of money of their damages. It is then up to the title insurance company to go back to their particular agent to seek recovery of the money.
So a lot of these title companies, per se, have bigger title insurance companies that write the policies. And then that company, per se, would go after the agent to recoup.
After the agent. And the agent has their own errors and admissions policy to cover them in the event of lawsuits or, allegations that the title abstract was done negligently or something was missed. But the nice thing about it is the customer has this large multi-million-dollar company backing them who has provided the title insurance. Otherwise, they're looking to an attorney's E&O policy that may or may not cover their claim in regard to monetary damages. So the nice thing for the consumer is there's some peace of mind or confidence there that there is a very large company underwriting this insurance that would pay out the claim.
So, Craig, an attorney, what's the difference with a title? Do title companies need to have an attorney as one of their owners or members?
A title company, to the best of my knowledge, John, does not have to have an attorney as an owner. However, they are held to securing a license. They are held to continuing education credits that far exceed what an attorney has to go through if an attorney is an owner of a title company, because attorneys in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania have their own continuing education requirements, and obviously have gone, at least 3 years of law school, whereas a title agent that is not an attorney would not have had that extensive background and education, to run a title company.
So as an attorney, do you have continuing education courses as well on top of what you have to go through for the title company?
Actually, for the attorney, there is a continuing education requirement of 12 hours per year, a certain amount in ethics. And I also, as a title insurance licensee, have to take so many credits per year for continuing my title insurance license.
So you're a student of the game. All right.
It's continual learning. You need it in the profession we're in. Everything's constantly changing.
And anymore, with the changing tax laws, too, someone with your skill set, being a CPA and an attorney can, advise a lot of these people that are sometimes selling a commercial property or a business or a farm as to the best way to do that, correct?
Yes, we get a lot of referrals, actually, from other attorneys and title companies because of our tax background. It's certainly something a little bit unique that I believe I bring to the table that may differentiate me from maybe another real estate attorney. With knowing a lot of the tax background, on a lot of large real estate transactions, there's substantial tax issues and dollars at stake on some of these transactions. Another thing that I get involved with very frequently and customers use our office for are 1031 or like-kind exchanges. So I do a lot of intermediary work for like-kind exchanges for very large transactions where people are rolling over their money into another project to defer the payment of taxes to the IRS.
And as well, with that particular train of thought, do you work at all with living wills or asset protection for real estate property?
We do. We review with people, again, how to hold title, as we started the show with this morning. We get a lot of inquiries on whether people should hold real estate in LLCs or small corporations for liability purposes, for tax purposes. So we'll review all those things. Everyone's situation is normally a little bit different. Their goals and objectives are a little bit different, so we try to tailor the planning to meet their needs.
And I want to dive into that a little bit deeper, but first we have to pay some bills, so we're going to go to a quick commercial break.
The Real Estate Radio Guys with John Rainville and Kingsley Harmer. We'll be right back.
Everyone wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, if only they knew the best way to do it. Hi, I'm John Rainville.
And I'm Kingsley Harmer.
And we're the Real Estate Radio Guys. We bring over 40 years' experience to talk about all things real estate.
We'll discuss the latest trends, hot topics, along with tips and techniques that could save you thousands and eliminate headaches.
So tune in to the Real Estate Radio Guys, Saturdays at 8 a.m. here on WHYL 102.9. Real topics, real answers for real real
Buying
people.
or selling
Searching for
a home online, morning, noon, and night, looking at website after website, clicking contact me, and nobody does. Missed homes that were sold before you knew they were for sale? The better choice is searchhomesinpa.com. Search if you want, or they'll do it for you. Contact by phone, email, or text to adjust your search, or to tour a property. Start online. They'll call you back at searchhomesinpa.com, or call toll-free 855-919-HOME, and they'll do it for you. Searchhomesinpa.com, 855-919-4663.
Back to the show, the Real Estate Radio Guys with John Rainville and Kingsley Harmer.
So we're back with Craig Diehl, law offices of Craig Diehl, and of course title. Again, back with Craig Diehl, if you didn't hear me. Craig, we were kind of getting into, I want to say more or less the asset protection side of that a little bit. And I want to kind of ask, because I know a lot of listeners out there are wondering, are there particular ways to sell a property, protect a property through sale that will eliminate taxes, will eliminate possibly, let's just say in the event of, God forbid, that the big N word, nursing homes, to keep your assets protected for family and for the estate?
There certainly are ways to do that with advanced planning. And what I mean by advanced planning is that I believe what you're alluding to is the Medicaid rule, which is a 5-year look-back rule. And we, again, very frequently have families that will come into the office and say, Craig, we would like to give our home to our children. So they think that's a very simple decision. They think they're doing the best strategy for their particular family when they ask that question. But I very quickly level the playing field by saying we need to consider the three, what we call in legal terms, the 3 Ds, which is an untimely death, divorce, or debt. And those 3 items have to be considered when you are contemplating conveying or transferring the parent's home to the children, possibly to try to circumvent a nursing home situation in the future, or to try to save death taxes or inheritance taxes when assuming the parents pass away before the children, when the parents pass away.
So in that event, and again, I'm sure with every family and every situation it's going to be different, which is why you're going to want to sit down or make an appointment with Craig and look over your individual needs. But there's a number of ways to do that, right? I mean, we've got living wills. Obviously, estates is what you want to try to avoid if at all possible. I'm sure you work with trusts in some capacity. So with every family, it sounds like it would be different in every situation.
It is different in every situation, and I think just from a terminology standpoint, I believe you're alluding to a living trust instead of a living will. A living will is a scenario that deals specifically with life support. A living trust is where a person is putting property into a trust that they have the ability to alter or amend during their lifetime. So a lot of people will use trusts to, again, try to protect assets from a strategic standpoint to avoid certain amount of taxes. However, in Pennsylvania, again, a very big misconception with consumers is that if they put assets into a trust, it avoids inheritance taxes, especially with real estate. That is not true. Only if the property is put into an irrevocable trust, which means they can never control that property in any fashion. No strings are attached any further once that property is conveyed or transferred. Would it be exempt or excluded from any death taxes in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
See, I didn't know that. So in other words, the living trust still gives you control or able to change the trust itself or the assets within it. An irrevocable trust is not even a rubber stamp. It's a hard stamp saying, I'm giving up control of this property to a trustee of sorts, correct?
That is correct. But then again, with sufficient amounts of time elapsing after that transaction is over, it does eliminate that asset from being included in the person's estate or possibly being excluded from the reaches of a nursing home if that individual needed to go in their retirement facility in the future.
With that irrevocable trust, however, are there agreements that state while I'm alive I get to live in this property as I see fit? Or from day one, is it the trustee's total control and responsibility?
No, most of your trusts are obviously going to benefit the principal or the grantor of the trust, the person that put that property into the trust during their lifetime. It's just a matter of that it will not become part of that person's estate when they pass away if it's irrevocable. The other thing that is used very, very frequently, especially with real estate, is what's called a life estate. And that would be a scenario where the parents do decide to transfer the property to their children, but they want to make sure that they always have a place to live for the remainder of their life. So they will insert or include in the deed for that conveyance a life estate, which means that the parent has the right to live in that property for the remainder of their days on earth. So it's a way to protect that there's a possessory interest there that, ensures them that they'll always have a place to live.
Craig, I was with folks the other day up by, our buddy Bill Cook in another farm up there, and those people have it in a trust. So one of the first questions I asked was, do they still have the right to be able to sell their property since they have it like in a family trust? Is that something that has to be in that document?
When a property is titled, John, in a trust, you have to specifically look at the trust agreement, and that agreement will dictate who has the ability or legal ability to sell that property. So what you may think would be the person that you're dealing with and talking with is the person that has the authority to sell the property. They may not have any authority to sell that property. So very, very critical that you ask for the trust document as a realtor so you know who at the end of the day is the person that can effectuate or make that transaction happen.
Interesting. So there's a lot of pathways, a lot of different scenarios, a lot of moving parts to this. I wouldn't be able to sit down here on a 1-hour radio show and understand what I have to do next. That's for sure.
Craig,
yeah, it's very involved.
Another one of our listeners is asking a question. So they basically give you the scenario. Kingsley and I go and we buy a property, but my little brother here, he's only putting up 30%. I'm putting up 70%. Is that something that gets recorded in the deed? So maybe down the road when it's going to be sold, that's how we're also going to split the profits?
Yes, in Pennsylvania, you can reflect on the grantee clause of a deed the percentage of each person's interest. So in your situation, you can reflect that as the buyer of the property, your little brother owns 30%, and John, you own 70%.
And is there another way that can be done? Can there be a side document that's done? Let's say we're talking about an unmarried couple. Can they come in to somebody like you before they go to a closing and say, okay, well, Wally only makes 30% as much as what the woman does? Can they do some type of agreement with you beforehand that would, carry weight?
Yes, but again, we're back to, I think, Kingsley's initial question, how did you take title? So you need to be very, very careful in that situation, because if you took title as joint tenants with right of survivorship, you may not accomplish the goal to continue that 30-70 allocation, because if the person that owns 70% passed away unexpectedly, now the little brother in your situation owns that property outright. But certainly, John, you can have a side agreement between the two individuals that would set forth upon the sale of the property how the profits are going to be allocated, whether it's reflected on the deed or not.
But that would have to be recorded in the trust agreement, the separate agreement.
Well, if we're talking about a trust, or it can be done outside of a trust. So this could be done just if, Kingsley, you and John purchased the property together as an investment, and you were planning to fix it up and to sell it to hopefully make some money. You accomplish that, and down the road, you two have a written agreement between yourselves on how you're going to split the money. Done very, very frequently.
Craig, another question that pops in my head from a previous show we had done on, when people get divorced. If people are getting divorced, does it make sense for the parties to come in and meet with an attorney and do an agreement before they put the property on the market, so they know how the mortgage payment's being done, any repairs and that, and how things are going to be split at the end? Does it make sense to negotiate that up front?
I believe it does, John. I want to be very clear. I'm not a domestic relations attorney in any fashion. We do have another attorney here in our firm that specializes in that area, so I always run it by her. But certainly that would be something that normally is reflected in a marital settlement agreement in regards to who's going to continue to pay the mortgage, who's going to pay the taxes, the utilities, the cost of upkeep, repairs, etc., when there is a split and each of the individuals are going separate ways.
Well, this whole conversation today, as brief as it is, I mean, we touched on a lot of different topics very briefly. But the old saying, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it, that certainly goes in line with title insurance all the way up through, obviously, that conversation with an attorney and the proper agreements in place. So, Craig, what is the best way to contact you to set up an initial consultation?
Our main office number that comes into the main office is 717-763-7613. We also have a very nice website. If you look up the firm name, Law Offices of Craig Diehl, you should be able to find very easily. And certainly email is also, we're very responsive to the people that make inquiries off our website.
And is that the same number they would call if they wanted to order title work or something with you for Prominent Settlements?
Prominent Settlement Services, which is another company, again, that I introduced myself as being an owner of, has entirely separate phone numbers. We just actually got those lines set up as Prominent Settlement is a fairly new company that's only been in existence for about 6 months, but doing very, very well. And I'm embarrassed to tell you I don't have the number memorized because the phone system just got set up here about 2 weeks ago.
Well, I'm sure they can get a hold of you at the same number either way and transfer to the correct number.
Absolutely.
And, as I stated before, we touched very briefly on a lot of different interesting topics, especially when it comes to estates, transfer of estates, and taxes. There's no way you can even begin to think you can guess doing this the correct way, as everybody's situation is different. So I implore you, talk to an attorney, call Craig with 717-763-7613.
That's correct, Kingsley.
Very nice.
Have a great weekend, Craig. Go play some tennis.
Thank you. It's a beautiful day. I hopefully will do that later. Have a great weekend, guys.
Thanks so much.
All right, bye now.
That's just a topic that
there's so many intricacies that in our business we run into, that you really need somebody that's an expert that can come and guide you through some of these things, because it can be tough.
And what's funny is everybody thinks, oh my God, it's going to be expensive. It's going to I have to pay for an attorney. But do you realize how much it's going to cost you if a nursing home comes in and takes your parents' whole house, your whole house?
I'll give you a real quick example. I bought a property a number of years ago that ended up finding out that after I'd owned it for 3-4 years that it's landlocked. And the title insurance company paid me out.
Really?
Yeah. Still landlocked technically.
Well, how do you get paid on something like that? They come up with a value?
Yeah. Well, that's actually already in the title insurance. So they actually took what I paid for it. They added appreciation, and it came in. So I got paid, more than what I had paid for it. So not only did I get my initial investment, I got all my money back out.
But do you still own it?
Absolutely.
Nice. Well, you made out there.
That's right.
So I got to go find myself some landlocked land. Anywho, so along the same lines as we just did here with title insurance and issues with lawsuits and stuff, I think we have our favorite neighborhood inspector on the phone. John, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys.
So a soccer game today?
Soccer tournament.
I thought last week was your last one.
No, that was the last one for that set. Now it starts all over again.
So do you just run continuously all year round?
Pretty much.
It's like you with pool.
Yeah, I guess so, man.
Billiards.
So now most of our kids have started high school practice now, too. So most of the kids are going into 9th grade, so they're going a few times a week for the high school now.
You sound thrilled about that. He's like, and they're doing this too.
It's Dad's taxi.
Soccer dad. Yeah. So what's our topic for today?
The topic for today, which will tie in seamlessly with the last guest, would be legal implications or legal concerns regarding a home inspection or the home inspection service. So what I wanted to talk about today is, what is a home inspection, and, what are the legal ramifications or implications associated with a home inspection. So fortunately, most of the home inspectors follow the same or similar standards. And it's important when you're getting a home inspection to read the standards for the inspection that you're getting, so that you know what to expect. A lot of the problems or type of problems that we have with home inspections are expectations that are out of line with the service that's being provided. Expectations that are greater than what we're actually service we're providing. Now, I fully believe a home inspection is a great service, but keep in mind that home inspection is designed to cover a couple thousand items that we're looking at, a couple thousand different things that we look at with each inspection. So the standard that's associated with a home inspection spells out, there's choices that have to be made. Am I going to check every feature on that stove, or am I going to do a general look, turn it on, make sure it comes on?
Whoa. You mean during every inspection you don't literally bake cookies to make sure that it does it correctly?
To make sure the heat loss through the gasket on the door is standard. So
I relate it to my clients a lot of times that it's just sort of like when you get your car inspected, So the guy does the car inspection. He checks it out so that it passes inspection. But that doesn't mean it's not warranty for the guy who did the inspection. They could drive it off when they're, home, and the transmission, it's not the fault of the guy that did the inspection, right?
Yeah. That brings up another term. A home is not a static thing. It's dynamic. Things are breaking, things are wearing out. What I find is the biggest thing is training my home inspectors to relay and communicate. We're supposed to check this. We're not supposed to check this. And, one of the things I have is, somebody said, well, I need a home inspection because my uncle roofer is going to check it out. So the uncle who's the roofer, he's going to check out the roof real quick. What about the foundation? What about, the insulation? So the home inspector has a bunch of different hats. A specialist, we have to look at a lot of different systems, but not go too in-depth in each one, because if we do go too in-depth in one system, we'll sacrifice at the other end at something else. So 2 hours, that's the ideal inspection time, about 2.5 hours. And look at all the systems we're checking, roofing, insulation, electrical, plumbing. It's a lot to cover, and it's actually an exhausting. To do a good home inspection, that it doesn't, it takes a lot of training. You have to have been doing them for 10 years to do it. It has to do with training and the inspection. Somebody who inspections for 20 years can do a poor inspection. Somebody who's been doing an inspection for years can do a poor inspection. The training of the inspector and, the part of the scope that they're following and those standards that they're supposed to follow.
Some of the legal issues that you've seen inspections.
Well, just if the contract or the inspection isn't properly communicated, where sometimes people choose to, things like, oh, well, this house, I have a crawl space, but it was a crawl space too, and it was disclosed, hey, we have a crawl space. Now there's a problem known it, things like that, are blamed on the inspector that there's no way they could have, a lot of it avoided by proper communication during the inspection, disclosure, and a lot of the problems that we have, or when we do have problems, sometimes when somebody was not at the inspection, we find most of the time that the person accompanies the inspector to the inspection. So that's my homeowner tip is, if you can, I understand sometimes people are out of state, but if you can, go with your inspector to the inspection.
So
you can see what he's doing.
So you get done a report, and on the report, everything seems perfect, no issues. 3 months down the road, the dishwasher breaks, and I'm going to sue you because you didn't say the dishwasher was about to break.
Thanks, Kingsley.
You're very
Appreciate
welcome.
that.
Do you often get, people call you up and complain and say, hey, you didn't tell me that there was this issue with XYZ in the house?
Not often, but we do, and we find the way you handle those type of things, we train our staff and our inspectors call the call right back, get back in touch with them, make a presence, if you can, get out there to the property and take a look at it and go with it, them with it. We find communication and, being responsive is like the best, the best thing with these things.
Is there any legal applications? Have you ever been sued?
Yeah, most inspection companies have been sued. If you haven't been sued, it means you haven't been doing it for long enough. So it does come up, when you do a certain quantity of inspections, that goes with the territory.
Now, is that because you missed something, misdiagnosed something? Why would somebody sue?
Just for example, let's say we do a home inspection and we point out that, there's water stains, there's water in the basement. There had been water in the basement, got pictures of the stains. Now the people that are doing renovations, they knock the down to find, there's mold behind these walls. And, they want them to pay for the mold. Oh, okay, well, let's do the inspection thing. Things like, situations like that. Sometimes, it's right there, hey, implications, water, mold, that goes with, moisture in the basement.
That's obviously something that...
say, go ahead.
Yeah, that's obviously something that you weren't going to do unless you start probing walls and whatnot, and holes in the wall. That's
right.
Yeah.
No, don't want it.
And for the sake of, for the sake of scientific process, a home inspector needs to be objective, fairness to everybody involved in the transaction. So we can't say, there might be mold. There's no evidence of mold. We can say there's water stains.
But you guys are sort of like, but you're experts. But a lot of people I've seen, on the realtor side, recommend that they bring in an HVAC guy or another for further investigation. Give us a hard time on that, but that's sort of like this guy's saying he thinks there might be a problem. A couple bucks and have somebody that's a vernacular housing component, an electrician or HVAC, and really say what the issue is or isn't. In your experience,
that's sometimes it gets overwhelming. You an inspection, okay, there's rust in the HVAC, get that checked. Then you end up with, I got all this follow-up, so then you have to pick and choose what are the most important things. There's always some to buying a home, and sometimes it's also follow-up on everything that's I'm sure you've seen that, right, John?
Oh, absolutely.
And for you, I'm sure you as an inspector, John, I'm sure you have something similar to a realtor or an attorney, like an E&O type of insurance in that event, in the event, correct?
Yes, yeah, we're required, in the state of Pennsylvania to carry the E&O insurance.
Now, for those folks that are out there listening, John's been doing this for a couple of months now, and in the lengthy time that John's been doing this, he's been able to sustain his business because he actually knows what he's doing, and he's good at it. So that insurance is definitely just kind of like icing on the cake for him. But,
and as I said, it is required in the state of Pennsylvania that if you're doing home inspections and providing that service to the public, you carry that, insurance.
So
that's good for the consumer.
If somebody wants to come out and get a free dishwasher from you 3 months down the road, what's the best number to give you a call on to get that inspection order?
I think it's that 200, 400 number or something.
Sure. Yeah, our 900 number, 717-233-6144.
I'm sorry, say that one again.
Give us your number again. We were laughing too much.
Yeah, it's 717-233-6144.
And as always, he's on Facebook, EVQ Harrisburg, and EVQHarrisburg.com.
John, have a great weekend. Give our regards to the team, and hope you guys do well in the tournament.
Hey, thanks. I'll talk to you guys next week. Have a great weekend.
So, with regards to the inspections and all the rest of this, I mean, it all comes down to, like I said, insurance, title insurance, having inspections. It's better to do it than not need it, than to need it and not have it done.
Yeah, it's just like we always say, right? Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and get the more information you get when you're buying or selling real estate.
Yeah,
it's invaluable.
I've seen too many times where I don't want to pay the $300 or 300, whatever it is.
It's nothing in the scope of things.
Yeah, it's so worth the peace of mind. And then the other thing too, revert back to one of our older shows. You can look them up on Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. We did a whole show on home warranties. So as good of an inspector that John is, again, the dishwasher that's going to break 3 months from now, you don't know that. I mean, you got a lot of moving parts to a home. Listen to our show on home inspections and home warranties. And, it's worth the investment into that on top of, the inspection. So if something does go wrong, it's covered.
So why don't you tell people your best contact for you now for your mortgage services? Because, folks, look, Kingsley and I like to give out free information with no obligation. So if you're looking for me and you want to talk to me about a real estate question, or you're an agent and you have a question you just want to bounce by somebody, my personal cell phone, 717-554-7430. But, rely on my co-host here, Kingsley. He's got a couple months in experience, too.
Yes, definitely have a couple months. You can reach me on our main line, which is 717-200-4800. Definitely retain, the same line at pagoloan.com as always. But give me a call.
I just want to let you know, I don't have gray hair. I'm changing this.
Is it blonde like mine?
No. So you have like copper, silver, gold, and then platinum. I'm starting to tell people my hair is platinum.
Yeah,
it's worth more.
It's also rarer.
So go ahead, finish up.
Until next week. Real people,
real platinum,
real artifacts.
All right, guys, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Real Estate Radio Guys with John